So basically, we're so excited. Lindsey is a very busy woman. She has 3 part-time jobs, and she also works at Dr. Abachi's clinic in Palo Alto. And we were lucky enough to have Dr. Abachi on one of our Facebook Live presentations that is on our YouTube channel. So Lindsey began practice yoga in 2005 on the advice of a doctor when she was searching for ways to have a healthier mind-body connection. What began as a method of relaxation turned into a journey of self-discovery that encompassed mindfulness and fitness. As a practitioner and instructor, Lindsey blends several styles of yoga. Aligning body with breath yields positive results on a person's frame of mind, leaving the practitioner relaxed and empowered to face the challenges of the day. Lindsey believes in making yoga an accessible and enriching experience for all people. So Lindsey, welcome. The audience is you. It has you. Take care. I'll see you in a little while.
All right. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate the kind introduction. All right. So welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to be here, and I feel so honored to have been invited to be part of a conference called Treating the Whole Person, because I definitely feel that really aligns with a lot of the philosophical principles of yoga, and is one of the reasons why I love this practice, and am excited to share some with you tonight. And I found that you can't encompass a multiple thousand-year-old tradition in a slide. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of yoga, a little bit about my personal journey with yoga, and then also have us do a practice. And I'm going to try and fit that in the next 50 minutes, plus answer a lot of your wonderful questions that are already coming in through the chat. Some of them I'll try, and since you've given me these wonderful things to contemplate or add, I'll try and layer into the experiential experience that I have planned. So a little bit about me. Like Jim said, I started practicing yoga on the recommendation of a doctor because I was struggling with chronic pain. It started very early in my life. It got really bad when I was in my late teens and early 20s, to the point where I was struggling to stay in school. I was struggling to remain functional, and I was on a lot of medication. I was trying to find other ways for me to manage my pain that made me feel more empowered. And one of my doctors recommended I try a yoga class. And I was very lucky that this person also recommended a type of yoga that was appropriate for my skill level at the time. At the time, I definitely was unable to, most days, bend over and touch my knees. My body was extremely contracted, and movement was really challenging for me. And I often felt like I wanted to be anywhere but in my body because I just felt overwhelmed by my pain experience. So I would say it was even found in the word yoga. And for those who don't know, yoga is a term that comes from Sanskrit, which is a language from India. And it often is translated as union or yoke, with the idea that we're trying to unify body and mind and have a healthier relationship. And that can be done through postural practice, that could be done through breathing practices in this tradition, or through meditation practices. And learning that there's so many different aspects to this tradition also was really empowering, to finding my own path, to finding something I could do that suited my body and mind and where I was at, and find what's right for me. And also gather more awareness of how different things affected me. And so it was really transformative finding this practice. And after many, many years, it's really helped me. I stick with it, and it's changed over time. Just because as I've deepened my practice, I've realized just there's so many ways to practice. And that's why it's going to be a lot of self-inquiry that I hope you're going to enjoy exploring with me. But like I mentioned, yoga is a many thousand-year-old practice, which means there's many, many different lineages. There's many, many ways to practice. If you look at classical yoga, most classical yogis did was meditate, and any postures they would do were in preparation for their meditation practice, and they would often meditate for many hours at a time. Now that doesn't, what we often you think of as yoga now is what is called modern postural yoga. And modern postural yoga is not only pulls some of the classical principles, like you may have heard of the 8 limbs of yoga or the Yoga Sutras for Patanjali, which informs a lot of the philosophy of modern postural yoga, and it has guidelines for which we should be with other people, principles at which we should be with ourselves. And on those 8 limbs, only one of the limbs is about physical practice. But maybe what we see mostly in the West is physical practice, and that's what we think of yoga, but really it's a much deeper, broader tradition. So we're going to try practicing a few different things, including something that's called from this tradition, pranayama, which is practices that work with the breath, that maybe work with moving what they might call in this lens of yoga, our vital energy or prana through our system. So when we're thinking about yoga, we also got to recognize that this comes from a different lens, right? And that's why there's oftentimes when you study yoga, a component of philosophy, or maybe some teachers might bring readings or something in class, because again, we're also maybe trying to kind of shift our lens on how we're looking at ourselves, as well as how can we find a better relationship between body and mind. So with that, I'm going to just maybe talk a little bit more about, some of you have already asked how. You're asking all really good questions, such as can you still practice yoga if you can't get down to the floor, or if you struggle getting up and down from the floor? Yes, right? Because as I mentioned, yoga is not only about asana, physical postures, it's also about breathing and meditation. And also, there's so many different ways you can modify your physical posture to make it right for you. So I'm going to mention maybe a few different kinds of styles of yoga, and we'll actually try and practice some of them. And we're going to play with, I think today, just because maybe moving more in a chair or from a seated position, but I'm going to also give you instructions that you can do the practice I'm going to offer today, standing or lying down, right? So we're going to see if we can find ways to really honor where we're at, how we're feeling as we move into our practice today. And I think that was a big part of my journey and how I fell in love with some of these practices and learning about this philosophy, is that it really gave me a chance to work with my fear of movement. It gave me a chance to allow myself to move at my own pace, to recognize what things work and what things don't work for me, to have an idea of maybe some of my mental, emotional patterns that were affecting my body, and also how my body was affecting my mind, to work on practicing, equanimity with whatever began to show up for me. And also that we have a chance to maybe work on being kinder with ourselves, that we work on these practices and try them with the goal of maybe honoring our own well-being, working towards our own path of healing. All right. So I see there's still more questions, but any questions about what I've had so far? I will definitely offer some books that I recommend. I'll also offer some modifications as we move into practice for maybe addressing things with hypermobility. I have had the honor through my work of working with people who have CRPS, and I know that it can affect an individual in so many different ways. So one thing that I also feel this practice has empowered me to do is to find what feels safe in me, to keep my awareness with what I'm doing. So I notice when I'm guarding, or to notice when this is too much or too little. But I want you to honor, as we go into practice, that you know what's safest for you from moment to moment. So with that in mind, unless there's any other burning questions, then I'll try also maybe incorporate into practice. Why don't we try some things? And then I'll also talk about maybe after we finish practice, how maybe you can, some resources of books, or what to think about when trying to find a yoga practice that's right for you. All right, so I'm going to change my camera angle here and move back. And we're going to try a few things. So first, I want you to choose, do you want to try some of these practices lying down? Or do you want to sit in a chair? I would recommend finding a chair without wheels, and if possible without arms, and something like a simple dining chair, if that works for you. You could also do this in a wheelchair, if that serves you. Or if you at any point need to stand because sitting doesn't work for you for too long, then you can play with that as well. We're going to just do a very short practice that's going to involve some movement, some breathing practice, and a little bit of meditation. So a few different aspects that you might encounter within a yoga practice. And right, like I said, yeah, you don't have to lie down. That's just an option if you wish, right? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move back. I'm going to probably demonstrate most of these things seated, but like I'll give verbal cues on how to modify it for if you're lying down or standing. And if there's specific questions at the end, like can you show something specific lying down, I'll try and leave time to honor that, okay? All right, let's try it. So first, choosing, again, an intentional seat. And if you know that for your core strength, it's challenging to sit up tall for a long period of time, but you still want to be able to sit a little forward in your chair, maybe thinking about putting some support behind your back. Maybe you want to use a pillow or something else you have at home to give your back a little bit more support. And see if you can make your seat a little more intentional. So perhaps bring your feet a comfortable distance apart, maybe about your hips width distance. See if you can, if it's appropriate for you to stack your knees over your ankles. And then play with maybe moving around in your sit bones to find where you feel about even. And then very gently lengthening your spine up out through the crown of your head. And sometimes it helps to think about maybe lightly tilting the pelvis forward. Think about the front line of your torso, lengthening that up. And when you get to the neck, think about maybe lightly lengthening the back of your neck, slightly drawing your chin in. Relaxing your arms down on your lap, or it may feel more comfortable for them to be down by your side. If you're lying down, it may feel better for you to have your knees bent, soles of the feet on your bed or on the floor, or lengthening your legs out. And if you're choosing to stand, because you know you need to titrate between sitting and standing, maybe think about stacking head over shoulder, over hips, over heels, having your feet a comfortable distance apart for you. So choosing where you want to begin. And we're going to just do a short movement practice that works some of the different joints in the body. A lot of you have already asked questions about joints. I'm going to try and give you some options to help you work with different joint movements for the body from head to toe. So let's see if we can, whether you're sitting or standing or lying down, bring our attention towards your head. So playing with your head, we're going to see if it's appropriate for you to maybe very gently, and since I'm facing you, I'm going to mirror you. You could choose to mirror me as we move. Just see if it's appropriate for you to very gently turn your head any amount over towards your right. And then just notice how far it feels appropriate for your body to just gently rotate towards your right. And then very slowly bring your head back to neutral. And then on your next exhale, move your head any amount over towards your left. Slowly bring your head back to center. And then we're going to move with our breath, exhaling and looking over towards your right. Inhaling and bringing your head back to neutral. And exhaling and turning your head any amount over towards your left. Let's see if you can try and move at the pace of your breath. Going at the pace of your breath from side to side. Moving very slowly so you can notice if your body begins to guard against a movement, if something begins to tighten, maybe not go as deep. See if you can soften. Just playing with inhaling to center, exhaling, letting your gaze go to one side. One more time towards each side. And then slowly bring your head back to neutral. Maybe take a few moments and just notice how that simple movement made you feel. It's a big part of the yogic practice. One of those principles for ourselves as we practice is self-study, or in Sanskrit, they might call it sadhya. Can we feel welcome? Can we feel curious about how these different movements affect us? Let's play a little bit more with the neck. So let's experiment with, if you're lying down, maybe you're just going to lightly bring your chin in. Think of feeling a light lengthening to the side of it, through the back of the neck. And either bring the chin to neutral or lightly tilt it up. So maybe you just make it a very small movement, like you're barely nodding your head. Or if it's appropriate for you, play with bringing your gaze further down. And inhaling and either bring your head back to neutral, or if it's all right for your neck, maybe lightly looking up. Because one of the things that why we want to be curious, why we want to study ourselves, is we want to notice not only how these different things physically affect us, but even any feelings that come up as we move. Or as we move, is our intention? Are we trying to move in a kind way? What kind of relationship can we cultivate when we move more mindfully? We come from a place of curiosity. So playing with moving your head, inhaling to neutral, exhaling and bringing your gaze down, any amount. Choosing to not do any of the movements I offer if it's not appropriate for you. Maybe you just do that movement mentally. Imagine what it feels like to do the movement, or simply moving with your breath. For one more inhale, one more exhale here. And then slowly bring your head back to neutral. And then we're just going to play with doing a little bit more for the neck. And we're going to explore just holding and breathing for this next move, where we're going to just try and bring your left ear towards your left shoulder, stretching the side of your neck. But again, you choosing the depth. And maybe you want to stay here. Or perhaps you want to see what it feels like to add the weight of your right arm, or whatever arm's opposite the way your head is tilting. Notice how that affects the stretch. Maybe you also investigate lightly reaching the fingers down to the floor. But come back to your breath. Can it still remain easy as you explore this movement? Can you still remain curious? Can you still remain kind? Taking one more inhale. One more exhale here. And then slowly bring your head back to neutral. Take a breath in through your nose. And then try slowly exhaling out through your mouth. See if that can help you soften your jaw. Trying that one more time. Inhaling in through your nose. Exhaling out through your mouth. And if it's appropriate for you, maybe slowly guiding your head so it's tilting so that your right ear is towards your right shoulder. Maybe focusing on stretching the left side of your neck. And again, you can hold these postures less time than what I'm offering. Keep making choices that feel right for your embodied experience, and only you know the right answer to that. So maybe you stay here, or you choose to bring your left arm down by your side. Maybe you even play with reaching your fingers lightly down towards the floor. But whatever your choice, see if you can still find ease in the breath. As you breathe here, for just one more inhale, one more exhale. And even as you come out, not be in a rush to maybe bring the hand back to your lap, slowly bring the head back to neutral, or again, you can leave your arms down by your side. And then bring your attention down towards your shoulders, and maybe take a moment, whether you're sitting, standing, or lying, and draw your shoulders gently up towards your ears. And then as you exhale, see if you can slowly guide your shoulders back down your back. And again, it's not a forcing, it's kind of an allowing like quality we're going for. So we're inhaling, shoulders up towards our ears, almost like a universal I don't know. And then as we exhale, we're allowing the shoulder blades to relax down your back. And maybe even say to yourself, as we try this a few more times, it's okay, as we move our shoulders down our back. So maybe saying to yourself, inhaling, there's maybe a lot of things we don't know. But as you exhale, maybe adding as you bring the shoulder blades slowly down the back, it's okay. Maybe we don't have all the answers all at once. Let's try that one more time. Now we're going to continue to work with the shoulders and work with the arms a little bit. I'm going to play with a few options here. One option is going to be to bring your arms down by your sides, palms facing forward. Again, if sitting for too long doesn't feel good, you can transition to standing, or you could do this lying down. Just having your arms resting down along your sides on your bed or on the floor. And then, so we're going to inhale here. And then as we exhale, we're either going to turn our palms to face towards our body, or if it's appropriate for you, internally rotate the shoulders so that our palms either face towards whatever's behind us, towards the bed, or or the floor if you're lying down. And then we're going to inhale, turn our palms forward. Exhale, turn the palms back behind you. Now, if you tend to be more hypermobile, I would say go slower. And if you approach your edge, don't feel like you have to go to your edge. Stay just behind it. Maybe notice I'm not, even as I'm rotating my arms, I'm not locking my elbows. I'm keeping some muscular engagement by not locking out any of the joints so that my muscles are kind of protecting those joints, are engaging. Because when we lock the joints, then all that pressure goes onto our skeletal structure, or in that part of our body where the bones are joining together. But when we have a slight bend, then our muscles engage more to help protect that joint. So maybe just play with this for one more inhale. One more exhale here. And then maybe just relax your arms if it would feel good to shake them out doing so. And then we're going to see if we can play with a little bit more with the arms. And we're going to do so one arm at a time. So we're going to see if we can play with bring our right arm out in front of us, palm facing towards your midline. Maybe curl your fingers in if that's appropriate for you. Give yourself like a thumbs up. And then as we exhale, we're going to slowly open the fingers one at a time. Bring your arm out to the side. Maybe even let your gaze follow your arm. And your arm could just go in line with the shoulder. The arm could be a little low for the shoulder. Or it may feel okay to bring the arm slightly behind. And then we're going to inhale, bring our arm forward. Exhale, open the fingers one arm at a time. Bring the arm out to the side. Maybe letting your gaze follow your thumb. We're just going to do this one more time on this side. Inhaling, opening up. Exhaling, opening up. Inhaling to come back. So exhaling to opening out to the side. Inhale to come back. Then relax your arm down. Shake that out a little bit. And then we're going to see if we can play with the other side. So we're going to inhale here. Bring our arm any amount up. If it's appropriate for you, curl your fingers in. Maybe just letting your thumb up. And again, you choose how much you curl, or even if you just want to keep your hand neutral. Again, different choices you can make. Inhaling here. As you exhale, opening the hand out to the side, either to in line with the shoulder, or maybe drawing the hand lightly back to bring a little bit more opening across the front line of the shoulder. But again, not going to your edge, maybe staying lightly behind it. And even now I'm keeping my elbow slightly bent. Curl the fingers in. Inhale, bring the hand back. Exhale, open out to the side. Inhale, bring the hand forward. Exhale, open the hand out. And just one more time. Inhaling, maybe again letting your gaze follow your thumb if that's appropriate for you. Exhaling, bring your arm out to the side. And inhaling, giving yourself one last thumbs up on the side. Exhaling, relaxing the arm down, shaking that out. And now I'm going to invite we focus a little bit more on the torso. Again, I'm spending just a little bit time with different parts of the body. And we're going to see if we can also, I'll give you an option for arm movements as we work with the torso. And if you've been sitting and you've been sitting with your feet hips width distance apart, maybe adjusting your seat so that you have your feet a little bit wider apart. Still trying to find that place where you're sitting up tall or standing up tall. And then we're going to think about stretching the front line of the body and the back line of the body. And it could be that you just think about maybe very lightly tilting the pelvis forward and simply as you inhale, lengthening the spine up, out through the crown of your head, or focus on opening the front line, lightly contracting the back line. For some of you, it's going to feel okay to tilt the pelvis a little further forward, arch the low back, mid back, upper back, bring the head up. And then as you exhale, maybe just come back to a neutral spine, or if it's okay for your spine to go into some flexion or some rounding, tilting the pelvis slightly back, rounding low back, mid back, upper back, bringing your gaze down. So inhaling and maybe finding either your arch or a light front line opening. In yoga, they might call this a seated cow pose. And as you exhale, either coming back to neutral or making yourself more like a round, like a Halloween cat shaped, coming into cat pose, tilting the pelvis back, rounding the spine may bring the gaze down. So as you inhale, maybe gently arching the spine, and it could be that if you're lying down, you're just arching your spine slightly away from the floor. And as you exhale, you just come back to neutral or round your spine. Let's see if you can inhale, find your arch, your front line opening. Exhale, find neutral or round. Choosing if you want to add in some movement with the arms. Maybe as you inhale, you bring your hands back by your hips. Exhale, you bring your hands towards your knees. Either if you're coming to neutral or rounding the spine. But just see if you can take maybe 3 more breaths, doing less if you need to. Exploring how you can find a sense of opening of your front line, a sense of arch. As you exhale, a sense of rounding. And just notice, again, keep that sense of curiosity. Keep that sense of kind of moving in a way that still has a sense of safety for you, which could mean you do less or modify this even in a way I haven't mentioned. Use your body's own intuition. Maybe on your next inhale, coming back to a neutral position. Again, trying to find that stacking of head, shoulders, and hips, whether you're sitting or even lying down. And again, if you're lying down, to have a more neutral spine, it may help to have your knees bent, soles of the feet on the floor. And then from here, we're just going to do a little bit of rotation and lateral opening for the spine. And I'm going to give you a few options. We already did a little bit of rotation by just simply turning our head from side to side. That's some rotation just for the cervical spine. And maybe that's what you want to return to. Or if you're seated, perhaps seeing if you can gently draw your right hand back, left hand forward. Maybe just lightly draw your right hip back, left hand forward, and just see how much, with just moving your pelvis, it's okay for your torso to move. For some of you, it might be okay to twist at the waist. For some of you, this is where you want to stay. Some of you may want to draw your shoulder back. Again, but try and find your first point of significant resistance, or where you still feel you can easily breathe. The breath can be a good indicator. Maybe look over your shoulder. And then as you inhale, you're going to slowly unwind head, if you chose to move the shoulder, waist, pelvis. And then experiment just as slowly on the other side. Again, we're kind of breaking things up to see, okay, what's the appropriate depth for this side? And also this kind of wringing out and sitting up tall, some of you asked, is really good for strengthening the core, right? We're using our core muscles to help us rotate. So we're going to see if we can inhale here and then experiment as we exhale. Maybe just drawing the left hip back, right hip forward, maybe, or the hand comes back towards your hip, right hand comes towards any amount towards your knee. Maybe you rotate at the waist. Maybe you draw your shoulder back. Maybe you look over your shoulder. And then we're going to slowly unwind, maybe at the head, the shoulder, the waist, the pelvis. And now that we've kind of wrung out slowly, we're just going to see how we maybe want to flow with our breath a little bit from side to side. And if you're lying down, I'm just going to show this on the floor quickly, but this could be on the bed. Maybe what your twist is going to be moving the knees to one side, inhaling to center, moving the knees to the other side. But notice this brings a spiral into my torso, but maybe in a way that feels safe and that you have a lot of control with. Again, my legs are still at least hips width or a little bit wider apart. Okay, so we're going to try and flow with the breath here just a little bit. So we're going to inhale here, exhale, and find your rotation that's easy to your right. Inhaling to center, exhaling and finding your rotation towards your left. Inhaling to center, exhaling and finding your rotation. But again, as you approach your edge, maybe notice what you're thinking, what you're feeling, right? Maybe it feels more nourishing for your system to do much less, to back off a little bit from your edge. But see if you can keep that awareness as we just very gently ring out. Just one more time towards each side, doing less if you need to. Your breath rhythm may be different than mine. So going at your breath pace. And then from here, we're just going to see if we can, since we've been maybe sitting for a little while, work with the hips a little bit, but we're going to isolate the hips. And then do a little bit for the feet. But first, maybe seeing if you can step your feet in so they're about hips width distance apart. And again, I'm trying to bring in some practices that can be easily modified for lying, since that was requested, as well as be done seated. Okay. But there's many, many ways to do this. So you could keep your feet with some space between them, or if it's appropriate for your hips, you can bring your knees and feet close enough to touch. Again, keep trusting your own wisdom. That's one thing we're trying to listen to here. Find that self-study, but also recognize what's non-harming for us. Or I might call this in Sanskrit, this practice of ahimsa, of non-violence. Not only do we need to practice it with ourselves, but it's one of those ethical principles from yoga that we practice with other people. So seeing if you can, from here, just bring your attention back towards your right side. And then bring your right knee any amount out to the side. So we're playing with external rotation in the hip. You may want to keep the sole of your foot rooted, whether you're sitting or lying, or it may feel appropriate for you to roll onto the edge of your foot. But if you have sensitivity in your feet, maybe less is more. So being also cautious that this is not only working for the hip, but the knee, for the ankle, and the foot. So this is going to be our exhale position. As we inhale, we're going to draw the knees in. Exhale, bring the hip out to the side. Inhale, draw the knee in. And just for time today, we're just going to do this 2 more times. Just doing 1 more time on the side. And then notice how your right side feels, even from just doing those few movements. Maybe it doesn't feel a whole lot different. Maybe it does. Just notice what you feel. Be curious. And then bring your attention towards your left side. Bring your left knee slowly out to the side. Maybe rolling onto the edge of the foot. And then inhaling and drawing the knee in. Exhaling, bring your knee out to the side. Inhaling and drawing the knee in. And maybe just doing this for 2 more breaths. Just see how you can gently rock your leg, whether you're lying or sitting, out to the side, and then back in. And then guiding both knees in. Maybe stepping your feet, whether you're on the floor, lying down, or sitting a little bit wider. And now we're going to isolate internal rotation at the hip. So we're going to sit up tall. Sometimes when we start focusing on the lower body, we begin to round. If you find, again, you need more support, you can bring more support behind your back to make this work for you seated. And then try exhaling, bring the knee in. Now we're trying internal rotation. Maybe you just come in an inch or 2. Maybe you're able to roll into the inner edge of your foot. And then inhaling, try and stack knee over ankle again. Exhale, draw your knee in. Inhale, bring the knee up. Exhale, draw the knee in. Inhale, and bring the knee up. And just doing this, kind of rocking the leg, but exploring what it's like for the hip to internally rotate, which may feel very different from external rotation as far as the ease. And if you find that you tend to be hypermobile, even in maybe have a little squeeze of your muscles as you draw the knee in and bring the knee out. Try not to let it be as soft. Have a little squeeze of the muscles to the bones. That may help protect your joint, especially if your hip is more sensitive. And just one more time here on this side. And then slowly coming back to neutral. And then exhaling and exploring the second side. Drawing the left knee in, and then inhaling and bringing the knee up. Exhaling, drawing the knee in. Inhaling, bring the knee up, but finding what feels right for this side. Maybe again, that's just an inch. Maybe it's movement's more perceptual to you than it's visually perceptible to someone just watching. Maybe roll more into the inner edge. Or if you know that you, again, have that hypermobility, feel a little squeeze, intentionally, almost like you put a weight on the edge of on your knee, but there's some resistance, like you're adding that resistance, and bring a little squeeze. But if that feels too much for you, again, keep it softer. So even with what your intention is, that can change even something as simple as this movement. And a lot of yoga works the hips. We're kind of doing some isolating moves just to see what feels safe. So we're doing more of a joint focused practice tonight. And just a little bit since just with terms of time. All right, and also it's later in the day, so we're keeping it a little softer. So just one more time here, exhaling, drawing the knee in. Inhaling and bring the knee up. And then slowly coming back to neutral. And then we're going to see if we can play with maybe stretching into the low back a little bit more. And also opening up the back line of the legs. But first, maybe stepping the feet back to about hips width distance apart. And we're going to see if we can, maybe very gently, keeping the spine long, feel into the low back by hinging a little bit forward. So I'm still keeping that alignment of head, shoulders, and hips. This is also strengthening for the core. You may even feel your abdominals need to engage to protect the low back. And again, maybe you come forward just an inch, and that's okay. Allow that to be, that's what's right for your practice today. Some of you may feel better to come deeper. You can maybe use the support of your hands. And just find an easy forward fold that's appropriate for you. Or you can still easily breathe and draw the air in through your nose. Exhale out through your mouth. See if you can soften your face for 2 more breaths. Inhaling in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale in through the nose. Exhale out through the mouth. And then slowly coming back up to neutral. And then we're going to gently begin to guide the right leg forward. And again, you could slide the leg along the floor, any amount that feels good for you. If you're sitting, maybe or lying down, you may want to keep a gentle bend in your knee. And then just try pointing and flexing your foot a little bit. Even though this is a very simple move, this calf pump action from just pointing and flexing the foot is really good for your circulation, for your lymphatic flow, or the movement of waste of your blood in your system. And it's something simple that if we do frequently can actually have a profound effect on the body. So just doing one more point, one more flex. Then try and circle your ankle. But notice as I'm circling, I'm keeping a soft bend in my knee. So this rotation can lubricate not only the ankle, but the knee and the hip. Maybe you want to spread and curl your toes if that's appropriate for you. See if you can slow it down a notch. So just do one more circle in your first direction and then gently change direction. And for my hypermobile people, again, maybe stay just behind the edge, slow it down. Can you feel that you're staying maybe a little softly behind your maximum? Can you keep everything a little bent? Can you slow it down? Or notice if your body or your mind resists slowing things down. Oftentimes we're think that we need to do. We need to do. What is it like to just allow things to go a little more slowly? Just doing one more circle here. Shaking your leg out, drawing your foot back in. We're just going to do a little bit more movement for the second side, and then we're going to call it good for movement today. So we're going to slide the foot forward. We're going to just, you choose how much, point and flex the foot. And if you're lying down, you may want to just extend one leg at a time. It may feel more comfortable for your low back to have your right knee bent, sole of the right foot on the floor or on your bed. And then find how you want to do more of a calf pump on your left, whichever side you didn't do the first time, spreading and curling your toes. Just doing one more point, one more flex, and then very gently circling your ankle. And maybe notice I didn't say which way to start. What's your natural tendency to watch and do what I'm doing? To start with internal circling inward or circling outward? Can you still keep this soft for the hip, for the knee, for the ankle, and for the toes? Just doing one more circle in your first direction, and then gently changing direction. Seeing if you can do maybe just one or two more rotations here. And then maybe shaking that leg out, drawing that leg in. And even just noticing after doing that just very simple sequence of different joint work and movement for the body, how you feel. And then for time today, I'm going to move us into doing a breathing and meditation practice to end today. And I'm going to move a little closer to you, but you can choose. I want you to first figure out, okay, what position would be more comfortable for me to rest in for a little bit. It could be as simple as sitting, and if you haven't been using it, use the back of your chair to support you. Maybe you want to put a pillow behind your back because that makes it softer for you. Maybe you want to bring yourself or sit somewhere where you have a higher back so your head has enough support. Some of you may now want to move to lying down. But I'm going to move a little closer to you also so that I can feel a little closer to you at home, as well as be a little easier to see your questions. All right. And we're just going to do a couple minutes, because I know we're already getting close to the Q&A time. So see if you can settle in a way where you can keep a gentle, elongated spine, whether that's using the support of lying down or sitting, aligning your head over your shoulders, over your hips, but maybe giving your back a little more support. See if you can let your arms rest comfortably from shoulder to fingertip. Check in that your torso is resting in a way where you can easily breathe. Allow your hips to sink, your legs to drape over to support. Allow your feet to rest comfortably. Choosing if you want to keep your eyes open or to close your eyes. But trying to settle in a way that allows your body to feel safe and comfortable. What do you need to do to support your body, to find a sense of safety for you, to find a sense of ease? And then see if you can guide your awareness towards your breath. Noticing the expansion of your inhale, the contraction of your exhale. And for some of us, it's going to feel safer to just observe our breath. When we bring our consciousness to our breath, we naturally take a longer breath. And that can feel soothing for our system. But if your mind moves away, that's okay. Just try and notice when you get distracted. And guide your awareness back towards your breath. And we're just going to play with a simple breathing practice. It's called in the yogic tradition Samavriti. And we're going to just begin to notice the length of your inhale. Count the seconds. And then see if you can match it if it's appropriate for you with your exhale. So we're intentionally inviting our breath to be even, allowing the inhale to be the same length as your exhale. And if it helps, I'm going to offer that you layer on a mantra or phrase with your breath. So still trying to find that evenness. And you may just want to count. For example, inhaling for 1, 2, 3. Exhaling for 1, 2, 3. Inhaling for 1, 2, 3. Exhaling for 1, 2, 3. Choosing to follow that count that I offered or your own count. Or maybe it would help the mind to think about, as you inhale, drawing in a sense of relaxation to your body. And as you exhale, maybe saying to yourself, releasing out tension. Inhaling relaxation. Exhaling and releasing tension. Maybe playing with this for just 5 more breaths. Less if you need to. And then after your next exhale, maybe gently letting any counting or any intentional breathing go. And then slowly begin to just breathe naturally for you. Maybe noticing how your body feels after just spending a few moments being curious about your breath, maybe intentionally evening out your breath or layering on a phrase with your breath. And for each of us, one is going to maybe serve our system better than another. That's why I try and give you a choice. And that's going to be true as we begin to move a little bit. Maybe you just want to wiggle your fingers and your toes at first, or blink your eyes open. Be kind as you emerge from maybe a sense of stillness. Maybe you want to stretch your arms or your legs and your mouth. Or simply just move your head. But for time, I just want to say thank you for trying that practice with me. Oftentimes in yoga, we may end or seal a practice with a mudra. This is called Anjali Mudra, and it inspires to think of gratitude, or sometimes it's used as a greeting in India. So I just want to thank you so much for trying that practice with me. Just a little bit of breathing, a little focusing, a little bit of movement. And I see some of you have quite a few questions. I know.
Lindsey, I have a few written down I could read for you. Okay.
Perfect.
I want to know how you feel about Reiki as part of the whole plan.
So Reiki is one form of an energetic practice, and in yoga they might call it working with the subtle body or the energetic body. Some people find a lot of healing from that. It's meant to kind of work with, like I talked about, like and that's the system. We have like a vital, like these systems of or rivers or channels of where the prana or the life energy moves through the body. In this system, they also talk about the chakras, which are kind of like whirlpools of energy. So Reiki, to my understanding, not being a Reiki practitioner, kind of works with those kind of energetic centers and tries to clear things out and help you find balance from that lens, from that view. And it's similar to acupuncture, which is in some way, but without needles, or maybe more like acupressure, where they're trying to invite things to flow that are stagnant in the body but in that system, they might call it chi instead of prana. Okay. So short answer is it could help. Try it out, right? Depends on you.
Are there any videos on Amazon Prime you recommend for yoga and stretching? And I'll throw in YouTube too.
So there's so many different videos, and I know some of you also asked about books. So it all has to do with your intention, right? Some of you mentioned that, you can't get down to the floor. So for you, I would look up things maybe that you can do in a chair, which often goes under the umbrella of chair yoga. Or if you just search chair yoga on YouTube, you're going to get a lot of different things. One teacher in particular I really like, she also incorporates some Qigong with her yoga practices. Her name is Sherry Zach Morris. And she specializes in just doing things in a chair. And she has standing postures and seated postures. Some of you may want to just try coming down to the floor once or doing things in bed. So you may want to try some more floor practice yoga, or if you want to do things that are more gentle, maybe think about looking into restorative yoga, which uses more props also to support the body, and they have more instruction with that, which can make more of these postures accessible to you using pillows or blankets, or they might have something like a block, or you can use a book instead of a block at home. I would also recommend, there are some books and some sites that are specifically like yoga for pain relief. This is Kelly McGonigle's book. I know it's backwards on you, but what I like about, since some of you also mentioned books, that it not only has posture recommendations in chair and on the floor, but it also has meditation practices, and it's coming from the lens of ways to help you to find a practice that helps you work with pain, from a breath practice, a meditation practice, and maybe some suggestions for movement practice. For some of you who are at a place where coming up and down from the floor is okay, maybe start with something, a type of yoga that has gentle. They're going to tend to go slower. They're going to tend to keep it more breath-based. They might hold postures for longer. But gentle can be all floor, or it could be up and down from the floor depending on the teacher. So maybe those are some places to start.
Another question. I've been practicing MELT, M-E-L-T, which works on connective tissue, but uses similar movements. Which is better for someone with CRPS?
So From what I understand of the melt lever, not being a teacher of melt lever, but I have tried it because I've tried a lot of different things. I have taken classes from practitioners of it. Oftentimes they use props like a tune-up ball. Let me see, I have one. They might have you use a ball for myofascial release, or they might have you use a particular kind of foam roller. And sometimes that pressure for myofascial release from a ball may feel too much for some of your more tender areas, but that's going to be very individual, right? So with the ball, for example, another melt, you might also see similar things from the melt method in something called yoga tune-up, right? So focusing on myofascial release. So you could use just your hand, right, to work on a particular area. You could put the ball against a wall, or you can lie down, right? But it'll change the pressure. And the bigger implement you use, like a foam roller, is going to apply more diffuse pressure than a ball. And also there's different kinds of balls. Some are softer, more like a beach ball. Some balls are like this one are harder, so that'll be more directed pressure. So it all matters of how sensitive you are to touch, I would say, would determine if it's right for you with CRPS. Maybe on your more affected appendages, you're going to go soft and slower and try the softest method, or try something like I did today that didn't use a prop, right? Or used minimal props. Try that first and then slowly see if applying pressure for myofascial release is appropriate. Or maybe you just work on some things that do brushing. Try brushing first with your own hand if that's appropriate.
There's a question about somatic meditation.
Somatic meditation. So I am not there's so many different kinds of meditation. I can imagine what that is, but I'm not sure if I know exactly what you're referring to. So a lot of times with kind of any kind of felt sense meditation, and there's many different kinds, it can be helpful to bring our awareness to certain parts of the body, and that sometimes that can bring some relaxation or some knowledge, or sometimes some practices like from yoga, like yoga nidra, or nidra in Sanskrit is a word for dream or sleep. It's a type of lying meditation that has a progressive body scan within that practice, as well as some other things to work with your mind and consciousness. So with pain, I found some days it feels really good to do something where I'm putting my mind on certain parts and I'm trying to bring a sense of softening there and a sense of acknowledgement that sometimes even if there's pain, takes some stress, because I'm acknowledging that part of me instead of pushing it away or trying to get out of my mind. So coming it from soft can feel good. Sometimes what's the sensory information from our felt sense can feel too overwhelming. So doing a meditation practice that directs your attention outwards towards things in the environment, like using your sense of hearing or using your visual sense, meditating on looking at an object or listening to sound, and you can even play soothing music, or meditating through visualization might be better, right? Picturing yourself in a safe haven, a place out in nature or a place you've been before that makes you feel safe, or a time where you felt a particular emotional state that you want to bring into the present. For example, meditating on gratitude or some other sense, right? That might be more appropriate. It all depends. I know
Lindsey,
I can't prescribe.
So during the pandemic, a lot of practitioners have been doing virtual therapy. Do you accept patients and work with them virtually?
Yes, I do. I do offer privates, as well as I do offer classes, like I mentioned, through a few different organizations. And I have been doing it virtually on Zoom, and as well as doing it social distancing, like out in a park or in someone's backyard, right, with masks.
And how would people get in touch with you if they wanted to? So
you can get in touch with me through my website, which is lindseykolbyoga.com, or through my email. And I'm just going to give you my general email. It's just my name, lindseykolb@gmail.com. And So if you want to connect with me, would it be helpful if I write my email into the chat?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I have several. I think I've been communicating with you through my clinic email, but this is kind of my general all work email. So just lindseykolb@gmail.com. Because I know with all of this, and this is why I try to start, it's so specific and it so depends on you, right? And your unique needs. So that's why even with trying to choose a practice tonight, I'm like, without being able to see you, without being able to have a more direct conversation, what is going to be right? What is going to give you a little sense of this kind of idea of intentional practice of slowing things down? But right, some people need to do it lying. Some people, the chair is what feels safe. Some people, you know, some of that may have felt like too much, right? So it's really about working with kind of training your awareness to work with playing with discernment, with what's right for you. And maybe, I know in my own journey, I've had to explore a lot of different things. I've tried acupuncture, for pain management, I've tried a lot of different kinds of yoga. And it's about finding a teacher, a practice, a style that works for you, for where you're at. And thinking about, I like how you've asked, like, if you can't get out to the floor, know that you can do a practice using the prop of the chair. If you can't, all you can do is lie down in bed. You can even Google like postures to do in bed. You can do a whole practice in bed. And I have guided clients who couldn't get out of bed, and we just did things that they could do in bed. The other thing you may want to think of when looking for a teacher, just really quickly, I know we're over. Thanks, Jim, for your patience. Is that you may want to think of a teacher who has either a background in yoga therapy. They tend to have learned more modifications, worked with a broader type of client base, or someone who has equivalent experience. Maybe they themselves have chronic pain, or they have had experience with trying to make yoga accessible. Another word that you may want to look up is accessible yoga. Those kind of practices are also going to show you a lot of different modifications and ways to do certain things. Mm-hmm. All right.
One final question, Lindsey. Someone asked about, should they push through the pain?
That's a really good question. I'm sorry I missed that one.
No, it just came.
Okay. I would say, why do you feel you need to push? Why are you picking push, right? I would say, I think of it as working with the pain. It's not that we're trying to totally back off so we never do anything that has us feel pain and suffering, right? Suffering is kind of a part of our existence, right? That's what we've learned, especially if we have any kind of chronic pain, right? Then that we have to find ways to work with suffering. So I would say, can you soften around it? Can you do it work with it where there's still some discomfort, but it's not so much that you're holding your breath, that you feel your whole body wanting to cramp up? That's usually an indication you've gone too far. Look for other signals, right? We want to kind of work with dull, achy. If something's dull, achy, maybe see if you can work with it, work through it, right? Give yourself a little more time. But if something is sharp, if something is making you hold your breath, back off, right? Try something else. Pace yourself, do less repetitions, try maybe a different movement. Or the mind can have a profound effect on the body. If physically doing the movement isn't appropriate for you, think about mentally doing it. Imagine doing it. Use your imagination.
Lindsey, I can't believe how gentle and wonderful spirit you are. And we're so grateful for what you did. And I just want to talk to our audience for a second. Please go networking. It's great. I met some people yesterday that were fabulous. And see you tomorrow night. I want to come on back tomorrow. We're going to have a Spiro clinic with Dr. Katinka, and we'll have Tracy Patterson, who is going to share her story and what helped her to recover. And so thank you all. And Lindsey, thanks
again. Thank you all so much. My pleasure, Jim. I so appreciate you inviting me to join, and thank you so much for your kind attention and everyone for trying these different practices with me tonight.
Good night, dear.